Episode 153. Just as Han Li was caught in a dilemma, the page finally changed. A brilliant golden light erupted from its surface, no longer absorbing the sword energy, but instead rebounding it. The blast pierced through the bedroom wall, leaving a clean sword hole.
Han Li suppressed his excitement, watching the page's transformation.
The light on the page slowly receded, coalescing into tiny ant-sized characters of light that floated upon the parchment. The page was covered in a dense, starry field of golden light, leaving Han Li utterly stunned. Then, with a sharp crack, the scroll control technique abruptly failed, and the golden page plummeted straight down. Han Li reacted without thinking, lunging forward to snatch the golden page in his hand. But the instant Han Li's hand made contact, the glowing characters on the page surged like a torrent finding its outlet, flooding through his hand and into his entire body.
What's happening?
Han Li tried frantically to fling the page away, but it clung to his hand like a living thing. The transmission of the glowing characters was too fast. In that single instant, they swarmed over Han Li's entire body, covering him in a shimmering, eerie light. Just as Han Li was helpless and terrified, all the glowing characters suddenly surged toward his head as if obeying a command, seeping into his skull one by one and cramming countless things into his mind in an instant. Han Li clutched his head and screamed in agony. In a short while, the glowing characters had all been transferred, and Han Li collapsed to the floor. A full quarter of an hour passed before Han Li felt even slightly more alert. The agony in his head had lessened considerably, but a persistent, low buzzing remained, his nerves stretched taut. He quickly hauled himself onto the stone bed and closed his eyes to begin regulating his breathing. Han Li's meditation lasted a full 3 days and 3 nights. Not only did the discomfort in his mind completely vanish, but he finally managed to make sense of the flood of glowing characters that had rushed in.
This is the Azure Essence sword art, and it's the complete set from the first layer all the way to the 13th. It's complete, without a single flaw. You can cultivate with it all the way to the legendary deity transformation stage without any issues.
Han Li was momentarily taken aback when he first received this information, but he didn't show any particular delight. But beyond that, the final section also included a supplementary technique for the triple revolving origin art, and this technique gave Han Li an immense surprise.
The 3 revolutions heavy origin art. It can actually bypass the bottleneck of the core formation stage.
This news felt like a message from the heavens, leaving Han Li in a state of dreamlike disbelief.
Ever since I entered the world of cultivation, almost every cultivator I've met, when the topic of core formation comes up, just sighs and shakes their head. They all say whether you can break through to the core formation stage basically comes down to fate, determined entirely by the heavens. That's only for those with exceptional talent, who've already cultivated to the peak of foundation establishment, and possess the qualifications to form a core. Of course, those with a heavenly spirit root naturally don't have such worries. To be perfectly honest, my confidence in forming a golden core is practically zero. But I finally found a path to immortality, to just give up passively. I can't accept that. So, the slimmer the hope, the more fiercely I yearned for core formation, and the more I was driven to stake everything on one desperate gamble. But now, a small path has appeared right before my eyes, one that leads directly to core formation and bypasses this bottleneck. How could I not be ecstatic?
In truth, this technique can hardly be called a shortcut. It's more like an unproven theory. The master who created this technique and the Azure Essence sword art had long since passed the core formation stage. This method was merely a product of his wild speculation. Even if one could perfectly fulfill all its requirements, the chance of immediately forming a core was only 50-50. But for Han Li, a 50-50 chance was more than enough. But after his initial elation as Han Li carefully studied the technique, even someone as strong-willed as him felt as if he'd been struck on the head. His face grew increasingly pale. Of course, to cultivate this art, one must first master the Azure Essence sword art. Secondly, the technique lives up to its name. It demands that the cultivator, upon reaching the 6th layer of the clear Yuan sword art, must deliberately disperse their cultivation and start the entire process over from scratch. Only then could one employ the triple revolving origin art to compress the newly cultivated magic power and true essence, refining it to be several times more potent. After repeating this process 3 times, a cultivator who then rebuilt their cultivation back to the peak of foundation establishment would find forming a core during core formation to be a trivial matter. This gave even Han Li pause for thought. It wasn't that Han Li feared the hardship of dispersing his cultivation and starting over. He simply had no confidence he could accomplish the 3 cycles of recultivation the other party described within a single lifetime.
Even with the help of my mysterious little bottle, this is an extremely risky endeavor. After all, according to their plan, each subsequent period of recultivation would be much longer than the last, since the amount of true essence needing to be compressed and condensed would also increase each time. Of course, the benefits of this method are immense. It would grant me several times the true essence and magic power of an ordinary cultivator. But by the same token, achieving all this would undoubtedly require me to spend several times more years than an ordinary cultivator. Whether I can actually pull it off, I truly have no confidence in my heart.
Unable to decide for the moment, Han Li turned his gaze to the other golden page he had taken directly from Li Huayuan's cave abode. It seems he'll have to check what's inside before making a decision. The same sword-light infusion, the same mind-drilling agony. Having endured it all once more, Han Li accepted the contents of the second golden page.
Azure Bamboo Cloud Swarm Sword.
As soon as Han Li began to sift through the information in his mind, these words surfaced. So this golden page was entirely dedicated to teaching core formation cultivators how to forge a magic treasure called the Azure Bamboo Cloud Swarm Sword. This set of wood attribute flying swords was remarkably similar to Han Li's Gold Talon Mother-Child Blade magic tool, being a magic treasure forged as a complete set. It takes at least 12 wood attribute flying swords to form a complete set, which is quite peculiar. Of course, if you could gather enough materials and had sufficiently abundant true essence, it was theoretically possible to forge a set of 36 or even 72. The text didn't specify exactly how powerful these flying swords were, but the mere thought of being attacked by dozens of them at once was enough to send a chill down Han Li's spine.
Just looking at these wood attribute flying swords, it's clear that pairing them with the Azure Essence sword art would absolutely multiply its power. I'll focus on cultivating the Azure Essence sword art first. If I really have to disperse my cultivation, that will only be after I've reached the 6th layer of the sword art and attained the peak of foundation establishment. At that point, I can try to form the golden core first. If it doesn't work, then I can still disperse my cultivation.
Han Li carefully put the 2 golden pages away, then focused his mind to plan his next steps.
Since I'm going to cultivate the Azure Essence sword art and the triple revolving origin technique, I'll have to make full use of the green liquid from that mysterious little vial. So, the ingredients for those 2 ancient pill formulas need to be gathered as soon as possible. Whatever we have on hand, we accelerate its growth. Whatever we lack, we collect or purchase from elsewhere. We cannot afford to miss a single one.
As for the other components in the green liquid besides spiritual power, Han Li still found them utterly mysterious. But spiritual qi alone definitely couldn't produce the miraculous effect of accelerating plant growth. After entering Yellow Maple Valley, he conducted several more experiments. No matter how much he diluted the spiritual liquid, the result was always the same. Any test animal that drank water containing even a trace of the green liquid would explode. It wasn't a matter of diluting the green liquid. Some unknown component within it was the culprit. After getting the same result several times, Han Li had no choice but to give up.
Using the vial's miraculous power just for pill refining seems far too narrow an application. This miraculous effect of accelerating plant growth, it must have far greater applications. In a foundation establishment battle, besides magic tools and cultivation techniques, intermediate or higher talismans are absolutely essential. These mid-level talismans are ridiculously expensive. It costs dozens of spirit stones for just one. I'm not spending that kind of money.
But Han Li also knew that many of the mid-level and higher elemental spells were in fact incredibly powerful, life-saving techniques. However, due to their high level, even foundation establishment cultivators find these spells require a significant expenditure of magic power and time to cast. So, buying a few to keep as a life-saving measure became an absolute necessity. So, Han Li turned his attention to crafting talismans, and not just any talismans, but intermediate-grade ones.
The blank talisman paper needed for crafting, whether low-grade or mid-grade, is also refined from spirit herbs of a certain age. This is the perfect opportunity to make full use of the bottle's miraculous effects. Of course, that won't work for high-grade talisman paper. That requires the spiritual hide of certain special demonic beasts to make, and it's not something I can get my hands on right now. As for the cinnabar used for talisman making, there's nothing to be picky about. You just extract some from a captive spirit beast. It's not worth much. The talisman brush does require some consideration, but I still have a golden bamboo brush. That should suffice.
The thought of the golden bamboo brush brought Han Yunji, that easily flustered girl, naturally to Han Li's mind. He couldn't help but smile faintly.
She must still be at the Spirit Beast Mountain by now, right?
In the blink of an eye, Han Li pulled his focus back, weighing the feasibility of talisman making and its potential consequences.
With the tools and a steady supply of raw materials, the biggest limiting factor for talisman making becomes the rate of consumption. Of course, that's not a problem for me at all. The only thing that still limits me now is cultivating mid-level Taoist arts and above.
A talisman master must first be able to cast a spell themselves before they can seal it into a talisman. Otherwise, there's no way to conjure the magic onto the paper out of thin air. After all, a talisman is merely a means of sealing a spell in advance. The very thought of cultivating intermediate-level spells gave Han Li a splitting headache.